The Japanese have sorted this out. We're going to talk about the evolution of consciousness at some point. But for this basic purpose, the Zen system has mapped this out quite well. So there are words to describe these experiences. Millions of people have had these experiences over the last couple thousand years. It's common. About 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000 people can have it at any given time. It's like average numbers. It's biology. There's nothing unique. There's nothing mystical about it. Please don't touch my feet unless you give really good feet massage, and then I'm happy to pay you for a good foot massage. Right? There's nothing unique or special about it. Every plant that's flowering is present in the moment. Every cockroach hiding in your kitchen waiting for you to turn off the lights to go steal some breadcrumb is fully present in the moment. They're not aware of the fact that they're present, but they're fully present in the moment. The mosquito that's trying to eat me is also trying to eat me. It's fully present in the moment. They're not aware of the fact that it's present in the moment. So we're born unconscious, as all life is unconscious. It comes from unconsciousness, unawareness of its awareness. Awareness is a property of life. This plant, if you see the way it's growing, it is aware of the fact that the sun rises over there, and it gets most of its sunlight from that direction. That's why it grows in this direction. Its roots are aware of the fact that gravity and earth go down, so they're growing downwards, looking for nutrients and water. This is happening unconsciously. We humans are born unconscious, unaware that we're conscious, unself-aware. We're just a blob of sticky dough, right? And slowly we become more and more aware. When we find ourselves in a situation when we're having a flash of inspiration, creative, intuitive, an insight, a flash, and you get it, like you just see it, you feel it. You've had this experience before? You've had this experience? You're aware of it. This is known as a mini satori. Mini satori. Mini satori. Your pendulum is swinging and you suddenly catch yourself, and it happens either right in the middle or right at the extreme. And today, you caught yourself at the extreme because you needed to work and move and exercise and sweat, take a breath, and suddenly, I'll explain the dynamics of that in a moment. That's a mini satori. You can create a life that allows you to experience many, many satoris. You're going to need thousands of them, if not millions of them, before they stick, and suddenly you get it and you can stay there. So that you don't pull yourself out. Because you had this experience today, and then how did you pull yourself out? I went back into my pilot. Yeah, that's right. Right. So then you pull yourself out. So eventually you have enough of a taste of it, you tasted enough, and you realize, I can just stay here. Huh. See, what I was doing, that I was arguing with Osho about, with his book, right, is that I was going out of my way, using my mind to create experiences so that I could then have a no-mind, intuitive, being present experience without knowing what it was. It just felt good. So I was going out of my way, investing time, energy, money, resources, doing things to get there. I had learned that I couldn't get there by simply chasing after it. I learned that I could indirectly create the conditions for it to happen. What I learned from Osho was that I don't have to do anything. I can live in that space, and then I can do things to take myself out of that space. For example, going into the business world, or getting into a relationship with someone. That'll pull you right out immediately. Because it's an unknown territory. And your autopilot will come on. So you've got an autopilot that's there to protect you. When you're a child, and you can't tell right from wrong, you need someone. You need an external device to control you and to say, don't do that. Don't play with fire. Don't jump out the window, right? Don't play with pokey things. Careful, that can bite you. You can do this. Don't do that. Yes, no, good, bad. Like on a bicycle, you need training wheels. 2 miles to the left, up, straighten out, and eventually you practice, and you learn how to ride your bicycle, and the training wheels are above the ground, right? So now you can ride a bike. Once you learn how to ride a bike, what do you need to do? Remove the training wheels. Otherwise, if you want to go mountain biking or if you want to race, as soon as you lean into a curve, the tire hits you. Right? So you need a mind, an external control device, to guide you and tell you what's right and wrong until you are mature enough to know for yourself. And that can only happen in puberty. So a proper society, a proper humanity will form when there are adults that are aware of this, and they can give their children, like we're giving Nampu, the right instructions, the minimalist instructions on what is good or bad, and the full freedom to taste, try, fall, cry, scream, break things, do whatever you want, within limits. Don't blow the house up. Good. If you actually want to play, she's at this age, if she wants to play with a lighter, I'll give her a lighter, I'll teach her how to play, and I'll teach her how to burn herself. Here, this is how you burn yourself. Ready? Ow! Okay, now you know. That's it. One time. Right? Instead of hiding in the closet somewhere and burning the house down. Right? So you want to, this is how we play with fire. You want to learn how to use a knife. Okay, let's start cutting. I won't give her a samurai sword. I'll start with a soft knife, right? But slowly, eventually she'll cut herself. We'll be ready, right? It's okay, it's part of life. Right? So you give them the minimal instructions. And then you create a situation so that this child can drop that mind when they reach puberty. Because there's one thing that will shut your mind off. That's an orgasm.
I just want to say that.
That's why they're so yummy, because for a moment you're not there. As a matter of fact, being present all the time feels like a low grade, like full body. Orgasm comes from organic unity. You're functioning as an organic unity. You're not lost in your mind. You're just, everything feels good. You'll have the light. But it's your birthright to live in that space. The child is ignorant of this. The child is innocent. The child is in the Garden of Eden. The child is like a flower, or like a little bird, or a puppy, or a butterfly, jumping up and down, having fun. There's no awareness of it. It's just natural. They're in a state of glee. It's just joyful and fun. And well, of course, if you have a happy upbringing, if you have a difficult upbringing, then. But even then, you go to places like India, and you see these untouchables living, dying on piles of trash, and the children are still jumping up and down and laughing, and their eyes are bright and shiny. All children are like that. It's a shame and it's a crime that they're in that space, but it does show that this is how innocent we are, that we can. But
it doesn't matter about the circumstances.
It doesn't. But then what happens is that these children imprint those circumstances, and they do nothing to change them. Right? So they won't go out of their way to clean it up. They just make more mess and they don't care. Right? That makes sense? So we start off unconscious. And then somehow we do things, extreme things, that bring us to the circumference of our being. And when you're at circumference, you're in alignment with your center. And it feels good because you're in alignment with your center. So there are people who are very good. They're professionals. They're like life coaches that teach you how to be in alignment. What they do is they get you to jump up and down, and chant, and scream, and shout, and run, chant mantras, and do your rituals, and jump into buckets of ice water, and sleep deprive themselves. And this puts you in a certain space. And it's in alignment with the center, so it feels good. And you need to learn how to do these things to have some dynamic range. But here's the cool thing, is that as soon as you figure out that you can experience this mini satori, that you can have a sense of oneness, that you are capable of being present, you have to never look for it directly again, because your mind will trick you, and put everything you got into creating situations for it to happen so often that it becomes common and ordinary and boring. You wake up that way. It has to be the most mundane, most unimportant, nothing special about it. That's how amazing this universe is, that the lowest standard is peak performance. The lowest temperature is 212 degrees. Speak like David, right? JT Fox. That's the lowest standard. To be fully present, to be fully intuitive, to be completely enlightened is the lowest standard. It's not the highest. People who reach there should just stand there and help other people stand up. You should never be put on a pedestal saying that they've achieved anything. You've achieved the same level of being as a cockroach. Nothing special about it. Every cockroach is right there. Even the one that just ate a bunch of poison. It's dying, fully engaged. It's functioning as an organic unity. So, as soon as you can function as an organic unity, you are in that space. We have the capacity to start functioning. Well, we're born as organic unities, and then we learn to cut ourselves up. We become gender identified. We have good parts to our body. We have bad parts to our body. We have dirty parts to our body. We have good emotions. We have bad emotions. Everything gets labeled, and you start to create your super powerful mind, especially the Western mind, is super empowered. Create such high resolution dreams that they look shinier and brighter and more beautiful than reality for the mind. But it's at best 10%. Right? So you can discover what you need to do in order to create these mini satoris. Once you discover the lifestyle that you need, so the first focus is, do you have them? Yes. If not, go out and have them. Okay, you've had them. Go out and do something you love to do. Climb a mountain, kite surf, extreme sports, adrenaline rushes, draw, paint, whatever works for you. Find everything that works for you that gets you into that space. Create a lifestyle that allows you to go from one yummy experience to another yummy experience, and let that become completely routine and basic, so that you fall into this space, into this alignment on a regular basis. Nothing special about it anymore. And then the next step, clean house, housekeeping. You need to go through all of your thoughts, all of your emotions, all of your fears, all of your beliefs, all of your philosophies, and see if they are in alignment with helping you be in the present. Or are they taking you out of the present? Because some beliefs, some philosophies will pull you out. And others will tell you which way to go in. And they're correct. But the fact that you're believing them, you're using your mind to believe them, so you're pressing the button on the walkie-talkie, and you're actually missing on the reality of it. So they need to be all seen for what they are.
Can you give an example?
There's a classic example I'll tell you. There's a story that one day Gautama the Buddha was approached by a man who approached him, sat with him and said, "Buddha, does God exist? Is there a God?" And Buddha said, "No! Stop asking stupid questions. There never has been, there never will be. Just go away. Stop bothering me." And he said it however he would have said it. That's how I would have said it. And the man, shocked, walked away. And the story continues that same day or the next day or whenever, it doesn't matter, another man approached and said, "Buddha, tell me, is there a God? Does God exist?" And Buddha looked at him and said, "Duh, of course. How can you not? Just go away and stop bothering me with your stupid questions." And then a third man came and asked Buddha, and Buddha just looked him in the eyes, just closed his eyes, and he dropped into a meditative space. And the man closed his eyes and stayed in a meditative space. And they stayed quiet for a while, and they both opened their eyes, and the man touched Buddha's feet and walked away. And Ananda, who is Buddha's cousin, and was supposedly always present, and is the one who tells this story, records the story, says, "Yo, cuz, Huh? What just happened here? Like, 3 people came, one you said no, the other one you said kick him out, the other one you said yes, and you also slapped him, the third one you didn't say anything, and he seemed, and what? I've never asked you before, but you must explain to me what is going on. What just happened? What did I see? And it's reported that Buddha looked at him and said, cousin, for starters, it's none of your business. It's nothing to do with you. But I will give you the right answer. The first man, I know him. He's a devout believer. His faith blinds him from the reality. He's looking for a God in an image that he has in his head, and it's not that. That does not exist. So I had to shatter that bubble for him, so that he could experience the divinity that is all around. The second man is an atheist, a hardcore atheist. He denies everything, and his denial creates a blind spot that doesn't allow him to see what's actually there. So I had to burst his bubble. And the third man was just open to just being present and experiencing for himself that which you can only experience when you don't need to ask questions. Any belief that you have, any philosophy, every belief that you have is a mental projection. A belief, by definition, is to accept something as true that you haven't verified for yourself. That's the definition of a belief. So a child has to believe, the parents, that jumping out of a 10-story window is a bad idea. Because they have no concept of death, of falling, of pain. They have no way of knowing. Right? So they need to believe it. The children believe. The child mind will believe. It is supposed to believe. A baby gosling, a baby goose that pops out of its egg, the first thing it sees, it believes to be its mother. If it's you, you're its mother. If it's a teddy bear, the teddy bear is its mother. It believes. It accepts blindly. It doesn't matter what the actual situation is. What matters is that you're fully present to experience it and determine in the moment, and to feel what you can feel through your body that is well stretched, well slept, well breathed, well oxygenated, well hydrated, well fed, well fully present. All of its 100 trillion cells are fully present. Whatever you experience, that's your truth. An idea that you have in your mind that can project at the same pixel quality or the same frequency as your capacity to receive information is going to create a blind spot. Makes sense? So all of them have to be reevaluated. At some point you'll go, wow, I believed in something. Like, do you believe the sun is going to come up tomorrow? You believe it, or you know it as a fact?
I know it as a fact, but I believe the fact.
But as soon as you believe it as a fact, it's a belief, it's not a fact anymore. So you create an environment that allows you to naturally fall into your center. And then from that space, you start exploring all your values, all your beliefs, all your fears, all your projections, all your angers, all your lusts, all your guilts, all your shames, all of your everythings. Because if they're projections of your mind, they're false. And if you're feeling it in the moment, you're angry because I just kicked you in the shin for the 3rd time in a row after you asked me to stop, then you're angry in the moment. It's absolutely existential, real access. But if 2 hours later you're still angry, then it's a sentiment, it's a projection of your mind. Because nobody's kicking you, so what are you angry about? Right? Somebody stole money from you, you could be angry in the moment, but then later, why are you still angry because somebody stole money from you? It's not my problem. Now I've got less, what do? I can worry about being angry and being vindictive or chasing after or trying to sue the person, or I can just go, oh, well now I've got this much, what can I do with what I have right here, right now? And you might find that that amount is exactly what you need to get you to the diamond mind. But you would have missed it if you had all the other stuff that somebody else took from you. There's no way of knowing. Reality is mysterious. It's unknowable. So knowing or pretending that you know through a belief blinds you to the unknowable. Right? Does that make sense? You become blinded to the unknowable. Just like right now, there's clouds in the sky. If the clouds were all gone, if you looked up, what would you see? The sky. Would you see the millions and trillions of stars that are up there? Why not? The sun's up. The sun's up. Your mind is that powerful. It's like a sun. It's a light bulb. The light's on. You're thinking, you're projecting, the projector's on. But when you're in the movie theater and the projector's on, the lights in the movie theater are out. So you don't see, you forget the person sitting next to you. You're in the movie. So anything that turns your mind on, if I'm sorting out my taxes, then I have a nice lunch, I make sure that there's no tree falling on my head, that there's no mosquito trying to eat me, that everything's fine. And then I go into my mind and I go into my projections and I go into the world of finances and taxes. Right? Or I'm designing something, or I'm rendering some video, or I'm drawing, or I get completely lost in my painting. Right? I forget the rest of the world. That's good. That's great. But I'm doing it intentionally. I'm doing it with conscious awareness. I'm not dreaming and believing that I know what's there when, regardless of whether it's there or not, my belief is projecting a blind spot about it. I'm missing something. There's a lovely story of an Indian mystic poet, Tagore, Rabindranath Tagore, who wanted to write about the moon, the moonlight, the full moon. So he went out, he had a boat on a lake, and he went out into the middle of this calm lake on a beautiful full moon night, and he sat inside the cabin of his boat, and he wrote and he wrote and he wrote pages and pages about the beauty of the moon and the moonlight, and then suddenly the wind kicked in, and it blew out his candle. He was writing by candlelight, and he saw for the first time that night the moonlight coming in through the window and glistening on the lake, and he threw all his poems away because they were rubbish. He was working from a projection in his mind. Even a little candle, even a little tea candle is enough to prevent you from seeing what's there when the candle's out. The little voice is like the tiniest little star, it's like the tiniest little candle, it's like a little firefly, a little fairy telling you which way to go. Oh, I'm going to jump. No, I'm going to do this. No, I'm going to make $1 billion. No, this is the woman that I want. No, this is... And then you miss. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah. You are capable of having these experiences yourself. Here's an example. About 7.5 years ago, I was living in Bangkok. I was already fully present, fully intuitive, and I'd been there for 6 months in that space, and I felt like I'd mastered myself as an individual, as a single individual man living in the world. And I had a friend visiting, and I knew, I was clear, like I've completed myself and my world, and now my adventure begins, right? So I had a friend visiting from town, and my friend wanted me to show her around. So she and her friend met me for dinner, and then we went to a nightclub, Bed Supper Club. They like to dance, and it was like the hip club at the time. And then the club closes at 2 o'clock. By 2:30 in the morning, we're in a cab, and there used to be a series of really, really fun, really interesting after-hours clubs. So I take her to the best after-hours club, and we arrive, and that night the police had shut it down. It never opened up again. So the cab driver says to me, one place, everything is closed, there's one place that's open. One place. I tell my friends, it's an interesting place. It's very Bangkok. It's very Thailand. We can go and check it out for a while, and you'll get to see it, and then we'll go to bed. They say, okay, they're up for it, right? So we get in the day. We go to this club. It's called Boston, in the middle of nowhere. And we walk in, and it's horrible. It's like, okay, you pay to get in, you get a stamp, you get a drink ticket, that's all good. You go inside, music, not my flavor of music, not mixed properly. The people, Too much makeup, too many fake lashes, too many people wearing heels not knowing how to talk, too many implants and fake. Everything is just, it's a meat market, and everybody's just a pickup zone. It's just horrible. So we stay there for a little bit, dance a little bit, drink a beer, and then finally I say to my friends, that's it. That's all there is. You want to go? Like, I'm sure you want to get some rest. Tomorrow is another night. So I walk my friends out, and they're going to a different part of town. So I put them in a taxi, and they leave, and another taxi comes up, and I'm about to get into my cab, and before I take any step or go in any direction, I pause and I center myself. Because I'm starting a new adventure, and I have no idea, and I don't want to bring... Just like after eating, I like to brush my teeth and rinse my mouth, and then now I can go try something new. Right? So I cleanse my palate. And I can do that in a breath, because I'm already clear. I know myself physically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, sexually, financially. I'm set. I'm clear. There's no questions about myself. It's just my environment. Right? So here I am. It's 3:30 in the morning, and I open the door to the cab. I let go of the door, and now the question is to go in or not to go in, right? Go in or not? And my little voice says, let's go back in. You missed something.
I think I
You're
know what you missed.
distracted. Distracted by your friends. Sorry, no thanks. I walk back in, I show my drinks, my stamp, I don't have to pay, I come back in, music, whatever, go to the bar, get a light beer, walk around, dance a little bit, half a beer. This place is horrible. My head is like, I just don't want to do it. Put my beer down, walk out. I step out, the door closes behind me. The sound of the door, I hear it. Boom. And in that silence, let's just go back in and miss something. I pause in mid-step, turn around, I walk back in. Take 10 steps, stand in strategic area. What am I missing? Who am I missing? What's going on? Looking around, I'm looking around. Nothing. Nobody interested. Nothing here. Okay, I'm going to leave. I turn to take a step. Stop. Stop. I center myself. Clear myself completely. I forget that I'm there. I disappear from the space. I come back. And I see Jantra. I see Jantra. Jantra. And I'd missed her. She's wearing jeans and a tank top and hardly any makeup and just flat shoes. And she's just sitting there completely quiet, relaxed, peaceful with a smile. Some guy's talking to her. She's just talking about it. Just completely relaxed. She has a friend standing by. I just watch them. And there's something about her. She has like a soft glow. Like a little fresh flower. One little flower, like a little daisy, little dandelion, in a shop of LED plastic flashing light flowers. She's just one little tea candle in a rave party with strobe lights everywhere, right? Picked up on something. So I study her a little bit, and I approach her friend and start talking to her friend who can tell that I like her. I'm interested in her. And I approach her and I start talking to her. And that was it. We've been together ever since. I just knew exactly, I could sense her. There was something about her. So I said to her, I said, do you want to leave this place? Let's go somewhere else. Like, this place is a little... She goes, I'd love to go with you, but I'm stuck. I'm lost. I have all sorts of problems right now. I owe money to this person. And I was like, how much do you owe? It's 700 baht. If I pay for it, will you just come with me? We'll just go out, relax, and I just would like to get to know you better. I'm with my sister, and I was like, she can come with us. I just knew. I said, okay, let's go. So she came with me. I gave her money for her friend. paid off. She left, she came, went and had something to eat, connected a little better, we dropped off this sister, she came back home with me, we've been together ever since. Turns out that that day, Jennifer's had a very intense life. She'll discuss it with you openly and happily. But that day, she was at the end of everything she'd tried, and she was down to her last 26 baht. She decided to go out for one last beer, bring her sister back home, and then throw herself under her car and kill herself. She'd fully accepted that she did not fit in this world. She was born in a war zone. She was born in an area between Thailand and Cambodia. Her mother was a Pol Pot Khmer genocide refugee. She was raised wild in the jungles. She was sold into slavery by her parents many times. She managed to work her way out. She managed to meet a nice guy who took her to Belgium. He was wealthy. He had diamond shops and this and that. She woke up next to his corpse. He overdosed on heroin and something else. And then she got sent back. And she just tried everything, and nothing was working for her. So she accepted the fact that I can't make it in this world. I'm not supposed to be here, so I'm just going to leave. And she was completely at calm and at peace. And in that moment, she put down everything. She was just fully present. And my little radar picked up on that. I walked back in 3 times. It was that. And she came, and she was very curious and very interested in what I was doing. We would sit, I bought her a book to read. I bought her an Osho book in Thai. She'd never read a book in her life. I bought her emotional wellness. And we'd go to a coffee shop, and she would start reading it. And I would find myself dropping into my quiet center next to her. Yeah, she spoke enough English. And when I would, she would reach out and touch me without looking up from her book or a magazine, whatever she was reading, and my silence would get deeper. So I invited her to do an experiment. I said, we're gonna leave Bangkok, we're gonna go up to Chiang Mai, we're gonna get a house there. We're gonna create a space where you can figure yourself out. Would you like to do that? We're just gonna have fun. And the minute you want to leave, you can leave. You're free. We're just 2 people. We have a nice energy. We have a nice connection. We're having fun together. Let's go to a place where we can have more fun together. It's not so crazy like Bangkok. So she said, okay. So we went to Chiang Mai. We created a space. And she was able to recognize the things that she needed to do to have her mini satoris. And once she was able to create the conditions for her to have her mini satoris, she started working on herself. We're going to discuss what to do and how to do that later tomorrow. And she started clearing herself out. And what you do is you create a space where you can have your natural mini satoris. And once you have that nest, once you have that cocoon, once you have that little laboratory for yourself, you start working on and finding the deeper, the stickier, the yuckier, the more whatever is in there, and you start clearing it out. And you clear it out until you have no more questions about yourself, your past, your emotions, your feelings, your whys, why am I here, what's the meaning of my life. You just drop all that nonsense. You just taste yourself, know yourself, experience yourself. And when you complete doing that, there's a transformation that happens that in the Zen schools call, you reach Satori 1. Satori 1 means that you are in balance with everything within yourself. So you've completed what's inside of this bag of flesh. And this bag of flesh is clear and clean, just these limits, this circle, right? And I'm clear about myself. And I've cleared myself, and I'll share with you what I did to do that so you can figure it out for yourself. But my reference point is first, create a space where you're going to naturally fall into your mini satoris, because that'll make it a lot easier. I did that, and I cleared my Satori 1. And once you've resolved Satori 1, you then start leaving that nest, you start leaving that cave, you start leaving that temple, that monastery, that little cocoon. You start exploring your outside world. You start mastering your outside world.
And how long do you think it takes to kind of find your mini satori?
Well, in order to find your mini satoris, you should be able to create the conditions to find your mini satoris in the next 3 weeks. You should be able to experience them within the next 10 days and anchor in having mini satoris on a regular basis where you are now in 3 weeks. Now, it could take 3 months. I don't know. Who cares? But the average person takes about 7 to 10 days if they've never had one. We have people you've already had them. We've had people who've never had them, and within 7 to 10 days they have it for the first time. They come up and they're like, this is already sitting on the rock after going dancing. So it's real. Now, what are you going to do to stop pulling yourself out of that? Are you going to create a lifestyle? Was this rich enough? Is this yummy enough that you're going to create a lifestyle that's going to be more conducive to that, even if it means less money, or no boyfriend or girlfriend for a while, or not having the car that you want to have, you just have to whatever. Like, it doesn't really what the situation is. You want to create your own mini satori nest. In that mini satori nest, you need to explore yourself so that you can experience Satori 1, which is waking up one day and, once again, you know how many toes you have? Did you count them this morning? Are you sure that's how many toes you have? Could I say anything or do anything to convince you that you do not have that number of toes? Do you know your anger, your happiness, your joy, your sadness, your insecurity, your desire, your guilt, your shame, your lust, your fears, the same way that you know how many toes you have? I promise you that when you know yourself that well, something happens that is worth experiencing. And all of those thoughts, all of those feelings, all of those fears, insecurities, inadequacies disappear about yourself. And now, of course, they're there for the rest of the world. But that's what Satori 2 is about. Satori 2 is about going out and experiencing the rest of the world so that you feel comfortable with yourself in Satori 2. When I had my awakening experience, I was already having mini Satoris. And I had pretty much resolved myself as far as Satori 1, and I had a pretty good experience of my life around me, Satori 2. I was just unaware of it.
You can have, like, be still not have experienced Satori 1, but already having experienced Satori 2.
So you're going to have mini Satori, Satori 1, 2, 3, and even 4. The fourth, and then falling back. What do you fall back to? I'm saying create a space so that you'll fall back to spontaneous mini Satoris, little mini Satori 1. In this little bubble, I feel so at one, but I don't even have to say anything because there's nobody to say it. I'm just
completely happy. I have sometimes these moments. I am already having them here. So happy with nothing.
With nothing, right? Yeah, exactly. Well, that has to be like the most mundane, like,
Yeah.
and the sun came up. Great. I mean, it's brilliant. Dance, celebrate, and the mini Satori happened. Yeah, look, it's a bougainvillea. It has another orange flower. Well, yeah, every day it has an orange flower. So what? It has to be like, so what? Who cares? Not like, oh, a Buddha. No. Oh, almost a human being. Almost a human being. This is the direction to become a human being. Otherwise, you're still a human becoming. Or you're a human doing. You're not quite human being. We're not human beings yet. We're a transitional life form. We're so transitional that, from a biological perspective, Darwin got it wrong. First, it's not survival of the fittest. This is Darwin's projection. Existence is thriving. But calling it surviving is too poor. But what to expect? It was what? 18th century, 19th century European scientist. Of course, he's stuck, right? He's stuck in survival. He was. We all are. You create a situation so that you can have these experiences for yourself, and they have to be common Satori classification so that you know what you're looking for. But don't get caught up on it. Okay, the map is not the territory. But it is nice to know that some other people have gone through this map. one thing really important. The fact that I instinctively was able to, I was raised pretty naturally, and I'm a healthy, good seed, fell in a plot of soil with just the right amount of nutrients to grow and just enough toxins to make me uncomfortable and make me want to move out. Right? And this is important because I'm very well aware of the fact that if my seed had landed somewhere else with too many nutrients or too many poisons, I wouldn't have made it. Okay? That's really what's going on. It's just the right, it was accidental. Right?
Same for me, yes.
That's okay. It's, lucky accidents, it's all right. But that doesn't mean that I can't continue with intention. I can rely on accidents, right? And some people do. They're just lucky, and they just keep going from lucky accident to lucky accident, and then that's it. But there's something about doing it intentionally that's very satisfying. It's very, very rich, inner richness kind of thing. So the first one is know thyself. Just know yourself. Once you know yourself, and you don't have any questions about yourself, you can start exploring your outer world. Before you can know yourself, you do have to create the conditions so that your attention can go inward. In other words, you find a beautiful little place where you build a little cocoon, right? A little nest where you can just limit the external noise. You eat the yummiest foods, whatever your body needs. When you're sleepy, you sleep. When you're wakey, you wake. When you're dancing, you dance. When you're grumpy, you're grumpy. When you're sad, you're sad. Right? You have to know yourself in all areas and all territories. Does that make sense? But to allow your attention to turn inwards so that you can really know yourself. Once you know yourself, just like you know the alphabet and you've done the multiplication tables, you don't have to keep going them over and over and over again, right? You don't keep counting your toes. You know yourself. But you want to do it in the context of being able to be present, awake, alert, mind off. Emotions, heart, open. So you create an environment where it's conducive for you to have your experience of this. And you fine-tune that so that it happens easily.
What do you mean by fine-tune?
Well, you need certain meats, but you need a little more chicken, or a little more fish, or a little more pork, or a little more beef, right? Are you happy with your bed sheets, or you go into town and you invest and you get higher quality linens because for a little bit of money you can buy really nice bed sheets? Maybe that's what you like. I don't know. That's what you fine-tune it. You want to have the yummiest experience. You want to be in a place where you can just wake up and feel good. Open up your refrigerator and eat yummy foods that you like, that feel good. Right? Like that. And there's a certain minimal that you're going to need, so determine what that is. You don't have to go beyond that. Whatever that is for you, that's what it is for you. Then allow the experiences to happen. And then you want to look for everything that you do unconsciously to take you out of that space, because there's no reason why you shouldn't be living in that space. These are your ideas, beliefs, philosophies, religions, upbringings, cultural conditionings, fears, hopes, desires, chains, guilts, the whole range of stuff. And what you can learn, if the most important thing to learn with this process, since you're giving yourself a certain amount of time, right? Rented a house for a few weeks, you've got a place for a month or whatever, you can stay longer, is you want to be able to, within the next 3 weeks, anchor in, just turn it into a nice positive habit that you're going to find value in creating a space like this for yourself, because it's going to take a certain amount of time to clear yourself out. And it could take 3 days, it could take 3 weeks, but it could take 3 months or 3 years. But whatever it is, that's your journey. That's your pre-journey. Right? That's what gets you to the present. Because it's how you pull yourself out. So treat your body in a way so that it stays present more often. That means breathe properly, hydrate properly, eat properly, sleep properly, stretch properly, dance, right? Do all of those things. And fine-tune that, titrate that, calibrate that so that you're really good at it. Eventually, you should never be more than a breath away from pulling yourself back into being present. It's a question of how far into your mind, into your projections do you go before you catch yourself. Right? But if you know you're in a place where you can wake up feeling relaxed and if you just do nothing, you'll just kind of fall back, just do that. That's the best. Once that's anchored in, once you've got it and you're clear about that, then start watching your mind, watching your emotions, start making notes and cataloging, categorizing, identifying the types of thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, the sentiments, everything that comes up. Just start mapping it out. Draw it out. And you're going to recognize certain patterns. So I'm going to talk about patterns of the mind and patterns of the emotions. So, however, I did say I would complete the satori thing that I got described. So you figure the mini satori is when it just happens accidentally randomly. So now you create an intentional space where it can happen more often, and it'll get richer and deeper. It'll happen more often, less triggers. Anything can trigger it. You work on yourself, you clear yourself, and when you are clear of yourself, that's called Satori 1. You have no more questions about yourself. So first you create an environment where you shut off the outside world so that you can then go into your little cocoon and figure yourself out. That takes a modern human being today up to 3 years to figure out. We're that complex. Some people have picked up more than others. That make sense? When Nampu arrived here, Nampu is the daughter of Jantra's younger sister. When Jantra and I met Nampu, Jantra's sister got herself pregnant, trying to snare a boy that was not interested in her. So she ended up pregnant, and he just went somewhere else. And she was raised by her grandparents, by this girl, and by her grandparents in very poor conditions, very unhappy people that don't work on themselves, aren't interested in growing and clearing themselves. And she was 5 years old. She was 4.5 years old one day, and Jantra and I went to Bangkok and we met up with her. And the girl was a mess. She had 4 rotting teeth in her mouth. She had oozing cuts and scabs on her legs. She would kick and scream and bite. She was a very unhappy little girl, raised in a very rough environment. She would go into these autistic-like trances where her eyes would roll back and drool would start coming out of her mouth. She was violent and aggressive and very unhappy. So we took her to a doctor and to a dentist. Invited her and the mother to come live here for a while, see what's going on. The girl would kick and scream, and it was very, very difficult. So I studied her for a few days, and on day three, I said, Nampu, come here. Show me your monster. monster. Come on, ready? I'm going to show. Ready? Rah! But I really let loose. So it's like, you, come on, show me your muscle. Come on, show me. She was shy at first, and then she started roaring and screaming and kicking. Now let's beat up a pillow. Rah, rah, rah. We played this game every day for 3 weeks. She cleared out the first 4 years of her life. She stopped having these little fits. She became very gentle and very sensitive. She relaxed. She let out her trapped emotions. That makes sense? So, whatever you have, it's there until you let it out. If you've let out 1% of it, 99% is still there. If you let out 99% of it, 1% is still there. It won't come out until you let it out. It will just fester and bother you and wait for an opportunity for someone to trigger it and for it to come out. That's part of Satori 1. So you want to find it. For this, I recommend reading Osho's Emotional Wellness and really studying it very carefully as a navigation chart and a guide. You're going to sail across the Great Barrier Reef. The weather's going to be stormy, and would you like to follow the charts? Emotional wellness, yeah. Would you like to do it blind in a storm? Would you like to use a GPS and a radar? Would you like to have a map? Like, up to you. It's your adventure. How would you like to do your life? You want to go and reinvent the wheel? You want to try to sort out? Like, up to you. For me, that book, it's about that thick. It's a big book. I agree with absolutely everything this man has to say about emotional wellness. It has nothing to do with me or not. I was born with an emotional package. It includes all the emotions that humans can have. And I learned, I imprinted, and I was conditioned on how to trigger different emotions to different experiences. But they were all external. Very few of them were authentic. My own. As if nobody ever taught me when to laugh or when to cry or when to be angry. If I just figured it all by myself, most of it was conditioned and imprinted and copied from my mother, from my father, from my grandfather. So I went through that book, and I made sure to compare where I am emotionally with where I am in that book, and I'm in agreement with that book. Just like I'm in agreement with the compass that north is that way, the east is that way. That's the ocean, that's the sky, those are the mountains, and that the sky is never below the ocean. The rocks always sink. I'm very clear about these things. That there's anger, there's fear, there's desire, there's lust, there's sadness, there's joy, there's confusion, there's all sorts of them. And I need to know all of them. Like I need to know how many toes I have. I cleared that, and I never again had an issue or a problem about me or my emotions ever again. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't work for you, well, then you got to figure out whatever works for you. As far as I'm concerned, your emotions are not your emotions. You did not create them. Your fingers are not your fingers. You didn't sculpt them. You were just born with them. They're part of what you have. And if you don't know them as intimately as anything else, you don't know them, and you're going to respond unconsciously. You'll be triggered. You'll be reactionary and reactive instead of responsible. Right? Does that make sense? I found the book in Thai, for Jantra, translated into Thai. She read the book. She aligned herself. She's in alignment with absolutely this man, what has been translated about what this man says, about what is emotional wellness and what is emotional unwellness. She has no issues about her emotions or how she feels. Whatever she feels is what she's feeling. She accepts it. She uses it to her advantage. She and I don't have any questions, issues, doubts, problems, or concerns about her emotions, my emotions, or our emotions because, well, we all agree that that way's north, so we don't fight over my compass is better than your compass. No, that way's north. This is anger, and this is why it's happening. This is sadness, and this is why it's happening. You can always know. There's no reason why you can't know what your emotions mean at any given time. It's your body, it's your energy. You should know. You shouldn't have any questions about your emotions. And once you know yourself, curiously enough, anybody else that you look at, it's pretty self-evident that they're angry or happy or sad, and that there's a reason, and that if you were given the exact same triggers, and you were in the same situation, that you'd be responding in the same way. That's it. It's very simple. Don't try to reinvent it. Or if you want to, go ahead. But this man poured 40 years of being present and working with over 1 million people into one book. It's useful. Right? It works.
Do they have it in English here?
They have it in English. You can download it. You can get a PDF. It's on Kindle. You'll want to read it in English. You'll also want to read it in your primary language, because you will get insights in your language that are different from what you will get in English, because of how you were raised. So what was the language of your upbringing? Dutch. So you're going to want to read it in Dutch. I'm sure somebody's translating it. That's as far as the emotions are concerned. As far as being here is concerned, anything and everything you can do to witness your emotions is of value. Because one of the things that you'll discover is that you might feel an emotion in the moment because it's happening right here, right now. And that's an emotion. If you experience it fully, with no interference, it'll flow through you like a wind, like a scent. It'll just pass. And it'll go. If there's any residue, if you're still thinking about yesterday, the day before, last year, last decade, your mother, your father, your child, or whatever, it's not an emotion anymore, it's a sentiment. It's created by your mind. It's a projection. Unless that person is right there that you're so angry with is intentionally trying to poke your eyes out, right here, right now, what are you angry about? If there's nothing to feel right now, why are you trying to be happy? There's nothing to feel. Not happy, not sad, not angry, not content, nothing. You don't have to feel anything. There's no reason to feel anything. You can perfectly just not feel anything at all. And in order to not feel anything at all, you need to be able to know what all your feelings are and not have any residues of any feelings. So you want to go through and explore your anger, your sadness, your happiness, your joy. And you'll recognize that it's all the same energy. Slightly different frequency of it. It's like light. If I take light, white light, and I put it through a prism, it gives me a rainbow. Think of the energy of your flowing through your body in any given situation as white light. It goes through a prism, which is your body. And it separates out into all the different colors, all the different emotions. The red, the yellow, the orange, the green, the violet, the indigo, all those blue, all those pretty colors, right? Does that make sense? Now, do you know what happens if you take a rainbow and you put it through a prism? You know what comes out the other side? White light. It's very important to understand that. Because if I put white light through a prism and I get a rainbow, and I decide that red is an angry color and I don't like it, and I take it out, and I put what's left through the prism, you know what comes out the other side?
Everything except red.
Not white light. It's not pure anymore. So, think of your body as the first prism where energy is flowing through your body, and then suddenly it wants to dance. Or it wants to fight. It wants to cry. It wants to scoop in. Right? And the energy sometimes will open, come out. And sometimes it will close. You know, cycles and rhythms and patterns that you need to know. Because it's your body. It's like the full moon. It's like the tides. It's like the weather. It changes. It's energy in motion. It will change under different situations. Now, if you isolate yourself from money, sex, love, people, touch, you eat a flat, simple bowl of dal and rice every day, one a day, you fast, you chant mantras over, your emotions are going to be flat. And they won't disturb you, and you will stay contented. You'll just be like Nothing's bothering you. If somebody comes and bothers you, then who knows how you're going to respond. You might explode if you have some repressed emotions. But as long as nobody's bothering you, you're not bothering anybody else, it's just going to be very flat, thin. Does that make sense? But let's say you wish to participate in a world with 7.5 billion humans, in which most of them are not feeling very happy today. I would say at least 99% are not having the best possible experience. As a matter of fact, 1% of Americans and Europeans are having a fun experience. 99% of Americans and Europeans are not having the most fun experience. I would say 99.9% of humanity, of adults on this planet, not children. Children are innocent. They're just laughing and jumping up and down in a war zone. It doesn't really matter, right? They're unconscious. They're children. Does that make sense? But I would say 99.9% of humans on this planet today are not feeling happy, healthy, hopeful, overjoyed with possibility. Streams are polluted. I grew up in a place where I could drink the water in the river in my backyard. You can't do that. I remember when they closed it down and they were like, you can't even swim here anymore. I remember when there was no such thing as organic food because there was no such thing as non-organic food. Yeah. We had less variety of apples, but they were all organic. They were just apples. So there was no other way around it. Right? That makes sense? So the world has changed quite a bit. And you have a mind which has been tuned to filter out certain emotions and classify them as beautiful states. Or, as some people would like to say, non-beautiful states, or non-resourceful states, like anger, or jealousy, or greed, or lust, or guilt, or shame, or sadness. So there are people who have developed the technology to take themselves out of an unresourceful state and put themselves into a beautiful state. There's coaches all around the world teaching people, making a lot of money, teaching people how to get out of their unresourceful states and go into their beautiful states. And it's necessary to learn how to do this. You cannot walk around moping and retarding yourself. It is not the intelligent thing to do. You need to be able to put your chin up, find the brighter side of life, right? Find a silver lining, storm cloud, get your ass up and activate. But you only need to be able to do it once. Because if you can do it once, it shows you that it's possible. I'm here to tell you that you can wake up that way effortlessly. You shouldn't have to do anything to be in that state. That before you have to do something to put yourself in that state, you need to realize that unconsciously you've done things to take you out of that state first. Now, a bomb falls in your head because you're Syrian right now, and things just aren't like very intelligent or beautiful in that part of the world. What to do? You have a right to be angry, sad, scared, right? Shit your pants, whatever. I would, right? The body has a way of responding to things. But if you're not in that situation, if you have to do anything to pull yourself up, you have to first realize that beforehand you're doing something to bring yourself down. So first learn how to pull yourself up, learn how to create a beautiful place for yourself so that you can fall into that space. And then it's very important to go in and start looking at what you're doing to yourself to interfere with this white light, this pure energy that's going through your body. Somehow you're filtering out, well, red is bad, orange is naughty and dirty, that's a sexual color or something like that. Right? That's the color of this chakra. It's just, don't bother with it. Everything's good. It's all good. You have emotions. You have feelings. You have sensations. They need to come out. They need to be accepted. Now, Pooh needed to let out some tears, some anger, some frustration, because she was this big and her parents were already starting to beat her up. She's 4, and she's getting beaten because they don't like what she says. She's 4. Like, if I say something you don't like and you beat me, I don't know, I can beat you back. I can defend myself, but not when you're 4 or 5, right? So she was unhappy about that. She wasn't taken care of. She had rotting teeth. She had infections. She was always sick. She was in the hospital every week. She was learning to find secondary gain in being sick because for that moment when she was sick, she wasn't getting hurt or attacked or beaten. We all learn this. Anyone who's intelligent learns to find ways to protect themselves. Right? So, what did you do? You did something. You stopped feeling. Yeah, that we do. We'll mute ourselves, right? So that's one way to do it, is just hit the mute button. But when you stop feeling anger and you stop feeling sadness and you don't allow hatred to come out and rage and all of these different things, then you put a filter. Maybe it's a neutral density filter. So, but guess what? Your joy, your love, your happiness, that gets filtered too. It's the same energy. So you need to create the conditions to allow all of your energy to flow through, raw and unfiltered, without bothering anybody else. Without hurting anybody else. Without hurting yourself or anybody else. So this book, Emotional Wellness, is brilliant because it maps out all the emotions, and it gives a series of active meditations, of cathartic, of release meditations to get things out. I found that I need to go somewhere where I'm not bothering anyone and scream my head off. I discovered that if I scream too loud, I hurt my voice. So then I discovered that if I take a towel and I bite into it, or a pillow, I can scream as loud as I want, and nobody can hear me even a few feet away. So that's one way, and it doesn't hurt my voice. I also discovered if I put my head underwater and scream, that the back pressure from the water is enough to protect and, well, maybe the crabs get scared, or the mermaids. It's great to scream.
It's so good. I did it the first time like a week ago.
Oh, really? I discovered this a long time ago. So go in underwater and scream and, kick and thrash and splash.
That's when I don't have a bath. That's what. Then I can scream.
Screaming in the bathtub. Well, you've got the ocean. It's relatively warm. Right? And you can scream in there and not bother anyone. The fish don't care. They're fine. Nemo doesn't mind.
Well, I can scream right now in my bungalow because there's a huge waterfall, but you don't even hear me.
That's right. So the only thing you don't want to do is hurt your throat. So a towel, something to block will help. Otherwise, scream. Scream until there's no scream to come out anymore. Be angry until there's nothing to come out anymore. And then allow that to turn into tears. You've gotten out some anger when you cry afterwards. Because anger is repressed sadness. It's expressed sadness. And sadness is repressed anger. So they both will come out together. And you have to give yourself permission for that. Because there will come a day, if you do the work on yourself to clear yourself, that you will no longer have any anger, any sadness, anything about your past, and you can be fully dynamic, fluid, responsive in the moment. And it feels amazing. It feels amazing. And somebody can punch you in the face and you're not even triggered by it. It's just like, you okay? What's wrong with you? And at some other reason, you might have another reason, you might explode in anger, and it's exactly what needs to happen in the moment to trigger a response. That might save somebody's life, or yours. Our emotions have been sabotaged. We've been taught to self-sabotage our full expression of our emotions. When you're 4, you can get it out in a few weeks. When you're 40, it takes a few years. Should you choose to work 100% on clearing out your emotions, there are tools and techniques that you can use, and you should be able to clear out 90% of your emotions in 3 months. I'll share with you the protocols, the recipes for doing that, should you wish to do that. It requires finding a place where you have create your natural mini satori space, taking care of your body and getting it nice and strong so that when you're angry, like it's rah! You're going to turn into Godzilla. That's what you got to turn into. You got to let it out. And why not? This pent up anger, like you got to rah until you laugh, until you cry, until you laugh, until you throw up. You just keep doing it until there's nothing left anymore. And then one day, if you're part of the world, someone will give you a reason to be angry, and you'll find out whether it worked or not. And you can say thank you either way, because if I can pull a hidden anger out of you, and it helps you become more aware and more awake, you might say thank you. So, this is This is, let's just say that you can clear your emotions. And first is your body, right? You clear the nonsense of not breathing properly, eating properly, taking care of the body, resting and dancing and stretching. And you can get this body going really strong and healthy. You have a marathon to run. Your emotions is going to be a marathon. You got to clear the emotions before you can actually attempt at clearing the mind. Clearing the mind is like climbing Mount Everest. I call it Mount Everest. You can't do it if you're emotionally charged. And you can't do it if your body isn't fit. You can put yourself into a minimalistic little bubble experience where you renounce life, renounce money, renounce relationships, renounce sex, renounce food, renounce joy, renounce pleasure, renounce everything, and put yourself in a tiny little controlled environment and learn to maintain your stability in that space. Maybe it still doesn't work. Right? So there's something to be said about get your body strong and healthy, get your emotions cleared and out. Now you can approach the most complex, most subtle, that's going to be the mind. But you have to do it in a fit, healthy body, and you have to be emotionally free. The whole purpose of Osho's emotional wellness book is Osho has a very, very important contribution, which I'm going to share with you in a slightly different second.